Hello guys, my name is Reyes and this is the summary of the chapter 2, and the chapter 2 is entitled Configure a Network Operating System. And in this chapter we are just gonna discuss about on how we are gonna configure a network or an operating system, or some CLI or the basic commands in configuring a network operating system. Then, Chapter 2 Summary. It explained the purpose of the Cisco IOS. Then, it explained how to access and navigate Cisco IOS to configure network devices. Cisco IOS, or Internet Network Operating System, is a proprietary operating system that runs on most Cisco system routers and switches. Then, as I've learned, the core function of Cisco IOS is to enable the data communications between network nodes. In addition to routing and switching, Cisco IOS offers dozens of additional services that an administrator can use to improve the performance and security of network traffics. Such as services include somewhat encryption, authentication, the firewall capabilities, policy reinforcement, deep packet inspection, and some other stuff just like quality of service, intelligent routing, and proxy capability. And in Cisco's integrated service routers, ISRs, iOS can also support calls processing and unified communication services. Then third one is describe the command structure of the Cisco IOS software. The structure of the Cisco IOS software is a Cisco IOS device supports many commands. Then each iOS command has a specific format or syntax and can only be executed in an appropriate mode. Then the general syntax for the command is the command followed by any appropriate keyword or argument. The keyword and argument are some of the command structures. Then keyword is somewhat a specific parameter defined in the operating system, and the argument is not predefined. It is a value of variable defined by the user. Then it teaches us to configure hostname on Cisco IOS device using CLI. In configuring the hostname, it's somewhat just you need to go to the router or an end device, and you could go, if you have some end devices, you could go to the, not in the IP configuration because it's just for IP, but the somewhat in computer's name, and you can just change it easily. But in the CLI or in some switches or router, you should go to terminal or command prompt in order to configure the hostname. Just like you will type the enable in order to go to user exec mode. Then after that, you should go for configure terminal in order to go to global config mode. Then after that, you should just type the hostname and whatever hostname you want to put. Then the next one is use the iOS command to limit access to device configurations. Somewhat use Cisco iOS command to limit access to device configuration. It is somewhat giving some passwords in every line or configurations, just like in having a password in a global exec mode or global configuration mode. You will just type the enable then secret, then what password do you want. Then in some lines, just like line console zeros, line VTY 0 to 15, then aux0 and some gigabit ethernet and other stuff. You could just type line console 0, then password, and what password would be, what the password should be, then in some line VTY and in aux, in order to for them to secure the network. Then in some gigabit ethernet, if you connect the fast ethernet or in other stuff, you could still use some password. And in order to encrypt that password, you should use the service password encryption. Just as in here, the service password encryption encrypts all the password that are stored in the CLI or in the system. Then it somewhat explain how or when do we need passwords and other stuff. Then use Cisco iOS command to save the running configuration. It is somewhat the continuum of the first one that I've said, because if you are done in your CLI or if you are done in your work, you should always save the running config mode, because there are two types of configuration, the running config mode and the save configuration mode. In order to save the running config mode, you should only type the copy, then running -config space, then startup config. In the platform or in that command, the running config mode will be saved in the startup config. So when you start again, the running config will still has been saved in the startup. So if you have password in before when you configure, then if you start again, you will have a password that you need to access. Then it explains how devices communicate across the network media, simply because of some packets and messages and other stuff. It somewhat needs cables and in order to connect to each other and other stuff. Then configure a hostname device with an IP address. In that, it is somewhat very easy if you are just giving a host device an IP address simply with an end device, because in the end device it is simply to get an IP address. You just click the end device, then go to their IP configuration, then just copy or copy paste the IP address that has been given. And if you want the IP address is already fixed, you should just be in static. Then if you want that the IP address can be generated, you should go to DHCP. Then in switches, you should configure in order to give them an IP address, just like in the gigabit ethernet, then IP address, then other stuff. Then in routers, just like the switches. And the last thing is the verify connectivity between two end devices. It is somewhat after you configure the end devices, the intermediary devices, and you've already known what is the cable that should be needed and the other stuff, you are done with that. The last thing to do is to verify the connectivity of each end devices, because with that if the two devices are connected, you can say that your configurations are successful and no interference has been done. And in order to do that, you should go to an end device, then go to command prompt and typing then what is the IP address of the end devices that you want to check the connectivity or verify the connectivity. Then after that would be if the ping will be in a request timeout, the connectivity is not there, or somewhat your configurations are wrong, but when it ping in 4 times and it receives 50% or 75% or 100%, the connectivity is good. So simply that's all for the chapter 2, and we